Alrighty, it's morning. It's Monday after the elections.
After the clock went back an hour.
That too. Where do we go from here? What do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the elections.
Okay, and your reaction to the election of, and I'll do this quickly, Soraya Martinez Ferrada.
Well, we've done like Montreal always does. We vote for the other guy. But what really shocked me was the amount of votes that Projet Montréal still got. But I have some numbers. Here. The rate of participation was 35.38%, which is very sad.
Mm-hmm.
There were 1,135,883 voters registered. The total votes cast were 404,104, and the number of rejected ballots were 9,411. The low turnout to me is always very distressing. And, we're hearing a lot of, well, we didn't, because of the mail strike, we didn't get our little card that tells us to check and see if we're registered or not. There were people yesterday that were actually still going online going like, oh, I didn't get my card. So whose fault is that? Well, as a voter, I know myself, I was thinking, oh, geez, mail strike. I better check that. And it was a good thing I did because I had to register. But election day would not be the day that I'd be checking. And I don't know why people care so little about this election. And we can't keep on saying it's because it doesn't do anything. The less people that vote, Yvan, the more it gives any government a chance to just do whatever they want.
Well, it's endemic, unfortunately. Now, what do you think of the new mayor?
I'll be really honest. Josh Freed, who I always want to call Gazette columnist Josh Freed, great humorist, who Parizeau famously called Josh Fred. He wrote this column on the weekend on Saturday talking about the lack of charisma of the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So basically saying that there was sort of like beige vanilla burlap, But he said, we have had candidates with more personality before, so that hasn't necessarily worked out for us. And I don't mind the lack of charisma, but what I am concerned about is the ability to have that passion, that strength to get everybody behind you. I can't judge her much yet because I've only seen her in her speeches, but I thought she was fairly low key, and I think I'm being kind. But once again, that's not all candidate is.
No, and I'm going to repeat a remark that a colleague of mine in the communications business repeated several times during the campaign, that she looked like she didn't want the job or didn't really care about the job. I don't know if that's the way she is as a person, her personality. I don't know. She's second woman to be mayor of Montreal, which is something to be said. Born Chile, came here when she was 8, I believe. And she was a minister in the Trudeau government, and she has a master's in management from HEC. So seems to know what she's doing in some areas, and we'll see what happens. Now, she is, I think, in your wheelhouse when it comes to bike paths. I believe that she will not be adding any new bike paths in the city.
I'm pleased about, because they're not really being used by cyclists. They're being used. I see a lot of cyclists on the sidewalks and the streets going the wrong way as usual. That definitely, if I were her, I would make sure that there are people who are patrolling those bike paths. But once again, the definition of who can use a bike path, it shouldn't be an electric scooter, it shouldn't be an electric skateboard, it shouldn't be an electric bike and all that good stuff. Less bike paths, just maintain the ones you have. But what about our roads are in terrible condition? Last week we talked about the lack of coordination when it comes to infrastructure projects. I think the woman has her work cut out for her. I remember my dad always used to say, because we lived in the States for a while, and he said, you got to feel sorry for the incoming president because he's just made, or whatever, the incoming leader, because they've made all these promises, and then they get to see what's in the cupboard from the outgoing.
That reminds me of something else. Speaking of personalities and speaking of having interesting things on their plate, Zoran Mandani. Have you seen this fella? Okay.
I saw him in an interview with Bernie Sanders on the weekend. It was quite...
Okay. I haven't seen that one. There's one with Jon Stewart that's worth looking up on YouTube. Yes. 20 minutes long or so. Young man, very energetic, quite a personality, quite a contrast with our new mayor from Montreal. But anyway, I don't know that he's going to be offering free bus rides in New York City anytime soon. I don't know that he's going to be opening free grocery stores anytime in Manhattan. It's interesting to see how people are reacting to all of this. I think that he knows that people know that he knows that people know that a lot of these things are not going to come to the fore. But he's an interesting character, and it'll be interesting to see what the results of that election are too. So.
Well, pre-election, it's like an audition, So of course you're going to do your best audition. I have to say that I did enjoy his conversation with both Jon Stewart and The Daily Show, and also with Bernie Sanders. And he was talking about how a lot of people like to paint him with the communist and socialist brush. And basically, you need to understand that those if they worked well, would be good things, but they don't. And he does have a big personality, but it'll be interesting to see if that, results. They've got a huge rat problem in New York City.
So there's many things, but what fascinated me is that he's working with 90,000 volunteers.
I know, going door to door, like doing a good old-fashioned election. And he certainly has a groundswell, and a lot of people really like him. And
he's a storyteller. If you watch the Jon Stewart interview, he tells you stories. He brings pictures to the brain to explain things. And for some reason, my naive little glimmer of hope in my little brain here suggests that there are still some Americans, if I can make that generalization, who are seeing past their own nose, past their own priorities.
I'd worry if Cuomo was leading in the polls, because his time has come and gone, and that was a bit of a train wreck, to be kind.
Yeah, but the money will fight Mr. Mamdani at every stage.
Of course, yes. It's just, and of course there will be the, I don't even want to call them right-wing media, because it's gone beyond that, but just the divisive media, because that's what a lot of media is now. It's just meant to divide. It's so busy showing you what's wrong with the other people and how the world's going to come to the end, and that there are pedophiles running pizza parlors and all this stupidity. They're making noise. What is that? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. But the problem is that you have to count on people, ordinary people, though you and I are not ordinary, not even a little bit. I'm kidding. But I'm just talking the rank and file. We have to be able to see beyond that. So we have to get off the matrix for 5 minutes and actually get out to the people that we are giving the power. We're employing them. We've said this before. We're not electing kings. We're electing people to work for us. So I think there has to be a partnership there. Now, whether ordinary Canadians and ordinary Americans are capable of understanding that concept, that's I'm waiting to see that.
We'll see. I've given up on the New York Times. I've given up on the Washington Post. I read The Guardian. I read La Presse. I read the Gazette. Even the Gazette has me kind of shaking my head sometimes too. So
it is part of Post Media. So
yeah. So okay, back to Quebec. Doctors. We still haven't resolved that. Transit strike is on again for an entire month now. The REM is I hope, going to be operational, heading up our way up on the North Shore sometime this month. We've got some serious problems here too. Oh, and news this morning that the refinery, the copper refinery in what's the name of that town there? It's closing. Yes, they're closing. They're closing the refinery after all this time of wrangling, and so that's going to leave a hole in the economy there. So again, I'm trying not to look at this as a glass half empty, but we're in for some turbulent times in the coming months in this city, in this province too. So I'm looking to Madame Ferrada to see what she's going to do for Montreal. They're talking about eliminating 1,000 jobs in the city administration. Don't know.
It is very difficult. I woke up this morning. I had my birthday yesterday, and I always, for me, birthday.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday! I didn't send you an email yesterday. I'm terribly sorry.
Yes, well,
I have it on my calendar right now, and I didn't get around to doing that because that's right, because I nearly died yesterday. But I'll tell you that story later.
Yeah,
please continue.
Actually, why don't we? Let's go to something funny now. But honestly, I need. And by the way, I do wish our new mayor the best. I do too. I do. But yes, let's go with something a little bit lighter, because it literally feels like the sky is falling right now.
I'm kidding. Of course, it's this snow shelters, tempos, as they're known in these parts here. I know they're ugly things, but it's part of the culture up this way. And everybody's putting up their tempo, their snow shelter around this time of the year. So yesterday, for some reason, we were paying a couple of people to come in and take it down in the spring and put it up in the fall. And then a smartass here yesterday, since our crew was not available due to illness, I figured, well, let's do it ourselves.
How hard could it be?
How difficult could it be? And you have these struts, these large galvanized metal struts, and you have to, and without getting into too much detail, you have to put these braces, these sort of diagonal braces in the first two struts to keep the damn thing from falling over, right? So Thomas Edison here didn't put the two braces in the first two struts, so we had 4 or 5 struts, arches, I should say, in place, all being pulled with the same thing, and the whole thing fell over while we were working on this. And it was actually rather dangerous because it weighs quite a bit.
Yes.
And it didn't land on either one of us, but it just sort of lurched onto the ladder, a ladder I had in the middle of the driveway. And then we were just beside ourselves. And then my spouse ran 2 doors over to our neighbor's home. His name is Jacques. He came running over and took over and began directing us, and we took it all apart and rebent things and put things together. God bless him. And 6 hours later, it was up.
I don't know how long does it normally take a professional crew?
Are you kidding? There was after we were done, our neighbor across the street had this young men's crew show up, about 3 or 4 guys, I guess.
Yeah.
And I looked up once and I saw them putting the pieces down, and I looked up maybe 10 minutes later and the whole shelter was up. It was done. So not quite the same size as ours, but much more efficient. So we've resolved now to get rid of it and get something a bit lighter in the next year, and perhaps leave it to the professionals. So yeah.
I live in a
but again, just as we were exchanging in our emails here, a thumbs up to neighborliness and folks coming over and helping each other out, which is something we have in this neighborhood, and I'm very pleased about. Please continue.
I think that before we get to our next topic, I think that is partially what we are lacking right now. I do know my neighbors. I live in Rosemont on a very small street, and everybody's been living there forever. And there is a lot of cooperation in the winter. My dear Portuguese neighbor next door, when he sees me struggling, and I have to admit there is some Oscar worthy performances on my part when I'm shoveling my snow and he's out with the.
Well, you've been living there for quite a few years now.
Over 23 years, yeah.
Okay.
But he comes over and he helps out, and I'm always grateful, because to me, I tried for the longest times to say, stuff like raking leaves and shoveling snow. It's sort of, I try to say, well, it's part of a seasonal thing. But the rewards of it, I used to say, well, stronger arms and, being healthy. But it's just, it's such a mundane chore. And last year, because of all the snow we had, I felt like a little kid again. I was shoveling snow over things that were like well over 8 foot high. Anyway, I don't want to think about that too much yet. Let us turn the page and go to the next item. On
the next item on your typed list, and once again, this is Era's list typed.
Oh dear.
And this is mine. There you go. This is how my brain works.
Yes.
Okay. What's next on your list here? Oh, okay. Did we talk about, you wanted to quote Dan Laxer?
Yeah, well, actually, you have the quote in front of you here, because I have to.
Whom we should have, we will have on as a guest, I'm sure.
Yes, very, very soon. But he said something which was and I'll let you read it, that I have said many times before, that you can't just vote for someone and then walk away and say, okay, well, that's it. I voted. I've done my bit. And now I shall count on them. I shall depend on them to do everything that they're supposed to do. And so Mr. Laxer said in his quote.
He writes for the Suburban. Dan, you and I worked with Dan at CJAD.
Yes. Love Dan.
Over many years. He is a poet. He is a broadcaster. He does many things. Quote, Dan, who wrote in the Suburban, your responsibility doesn't end once you've made your pencil mark on a ballot. That's when it begins, which is what you were saying earlier. We can't be steamrolled if we remember that the steamrollers belong to us, unquote. And ain't that the truth?
Well, I just find that people tend to complain a lot. And I now that we have the same mayor again, and in our neighborhood too, like I saw very few signs. It was weird. You go over to the plateau and there was tons of signs. But here, I couldn't get in touch with the Ensemble Memorial candidate. We got a lot of email from Huneault, but not so much from our existing mayor. And so when our mayor was voted back again, my heart kind of sunk, because lots of, like everywhere else, lots of garbage, potholes galore, too many bike paths, trees that need to be cut before the next ice storm.
Of course, you're talking about your arrondissement there, yes?
Yeah, so it was more
right. Yeah. Right.
And so, I'm getting ready to go over to Huneault to hand deliver an email, because I have to bring letters over there, because I email and I get a thank you for contacting City Hall, and we'll get back to you. Which rarely happens, but they do ask for money when you do that, which is always fun. But I intend to be a lot more omnipresent at my city council meetings, and I intend to go with lists, and I intend to stay on my city councilors. One of my biggest concerns here is I live right near the Iberville overpass. Which, if you go, it's the border of the plateau and Rosemont Petit. Iberville is where the old Journal de Montréal building is. Well, it still is, but of course there's no more people working there. And the Iberville underpass, when you walk under it, it's there's very little of the original cement. It is nothing but patches, and I'm quite concerned about that, because it's a night track, where there's a lot of flammable liquids and gas and cleaning fluid, and the big trains that roll at night. And I am really concerned for the safety of the thing. I never quite see anybody out there inspecting it. And the interesting thing is right next to the train track, they built a bunch of seniors condos. And if that overpass doesn't quite hold, it could be quite bad. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I look at that and I think that those seniors' residences are the only thing between me and my apartment if things go bad and go megantic. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to terrify people. But
no, you gotta make noise. You're right. And my thing here is speeding on the street here. It's a 30 kilometer zone, and we've got 50, 60, 70 kilometers, and it just happens to be a fairly long stretch between two municipalities, no stop signs for quite a distance. And there were no children in this household or pets or anything like that, but there are kids who live on the street. There's school bus stops on the street, and I complain, and they write back and say, well, we've received your complaint, this, that, and the other thing. So now I've had to start shaking the tree a little bit, and I've set up a website. I won't talk about it today, but you have to. We live in a society that needs a kick in the ass, so you have to start shaming people into doing things, and this is where we're going now, because the local councillor here was reelected after 12 years. She came by the other day and we talked about it, and there doesn't seem to be any impetus to do anything. So I will provide the impetus in the short term.
Well, we are their employers, and to our lovely viewers out there, if you want things to change, like there's supposed to be a partnership. We went from kings and serfs, and then what are we, the plebes, to having elected government, so that we pay them to serve us. But I see very little service. So I'm going to work very hard, and you are too, and I hope everybody else is.
Well, otherwise we're just it's going to continue, and we're going to sink into apathy, and of course, people don't care until it begins to affect them directly, and all of a sudden, oh, wait a second, something happened to my child, or something happened to my front yard or something. Oh, all of a sudden they become involved the rest of the time. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I also think that apathy, what happens too is leaders use apathy. You'll go into a city hall or a national assembly or, Parliament Hill, where they'll have these wonderful grade 3 level arguments of you said, well, you said, well, you said. And we are not deserving of that. Speaking of that, federal budget coming up.
Yes. Just to close on that, not an easy job, again, being a city councillor or a mayor or an MP or an MNA. I forgot what the exact figure was they were talking about this morning, but there were many municipalities in Quebec now where nobody showed up. Nobody ran for mayor. Nobody ran for local council. So that's a whole other thing too, and it brings us back to the apathy. Would you want to do that job? I don't know.
I think I will run the next election if I'm still alive.
Okay, all right. Well, let's. I'll vote for you. I'll move just to vote for you. Anyway, aren't we a couple of?
No, we have to. Well, I guess now the next thing I'm waiting is for this federal budget tomorrow. And I think I sent you an email saying that we were told we had to tighten our belts, but you. A learned journalist. Where do we tighten the belts? Do we cut down the size of our government? Can we get? There are a lot of union jobs there. So can we?
Yes, well, we're heading for a record deficit, and Carney has been telescoping that and telegraphing that for some time now. So that's what we're going to be looking at. But we're living in bizarre times now with Trump and company, and that Carney and company are walking on shifting sands here every single day.
I know.
And this is the elephant in the room, the elephant with a full diaper in the room right now, and we can't budget, we can't shift it, so we have to adjust, and it's going to be, he he has said as much. It's going to be painful. And I don't know that we can get around that. So I know that you were bristling at the idea of having to make sacrifices in this and that. And we can get into food banks in just a second here, too, because people are having a rough time. And I certainly acknowledge that, as everyone does. So we have to sort of pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and help others and to get through this, because it's not going to be the benevolent government who's going to show up with a pound of butter and a dozen eggs at your doorstep.
No, but if you remember before, I had a suggestion, and that is, all city halls have rooms that could be turned into food banks. And my suggestion for every single city hall is take a room, turn it into a food bank. I'm not kidding. That will be open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And, the citizens that bring by 10 non-perishable food items should receive a ticket for a free Montreal attraction, or wherever you live.
Yep, I remember you mentioning that. Yeah,
and I think that would be a good thing. Plus, when you go to your city hall, you have an opportunity running into people and speaking to them if the security guards don't tackle you to the ground.
But and what we like to do, and I think we mentioned this before, is what we like to do around here is when it comes to giving around the holidays, and not just around the holidays, we give to others. We give to food banks. We give to kids for parkas and school supplies and that kind of thing. So that might be something. Idea. Well, sure. I mean, here's a little Merry Christmas to you, or Happy Holidays, or Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is. Here's what I did on your behalf. I made a donation to such and such, or whatever it is. And thank you very much for that. So, and what I was astounded to read the other day, just to get back to food banks, Moisson Montréal, where you are, is receiving more than 1 million requests for assistance per month. Okay? It's astounding. It's just blown up. So this is where we should be, instead of belly aching about the sacrifices, and I'm not quoting you here necessarily about the sacrifices we may have to make in other quarters. Let's do something to help others. Just because
actually, I do agree with you, and I don't mean to bellyache. I guess that was just a knee-jerk.
No, I wasn't suggesting you were. No, I understand that. People, I think I'm rather. What can I say? Fixated on the idea, or that the government is not responsible for feeding your family or for getting you a job. So if you need assistance, there are assistance programs available to you, but the population has to step up to and help one another.
No, I agree. I remember when I was growing up in Manor Park in Ottawa, and it was we knew everybody on the street. We literally knew everybody on the street. It seemed like a big street then. It was very little, but it was a kind of neighborhood where, if someone passed away, casseroles were brought over to the house. If somebody was sick, people offered to help out, babysit. Once again, bring casseroles over to the house. I remember that our local church had this great program where a bunch of us would get together once a month, the local women, and we'd all put some money into the kitty and make a bunch of dishes, right? That you could either take home to feed your family, or you could donate it to a food program. And I remember church bottle drives to help different charities. I remember, the True Social Network when I was growing up with Boy Scouts and Girl Guides and Candy Stripe Girls. For those of you who are unfamiliar, that's volunteers who work in the hospital. And that's another thing, too. If you're going to tighten your belt, tighten it in that, more time for your neighbors and more volunteering.
Yep. And that gets back to my friend here who saved our bacon yesterday. So there's something I just as that was happening, because my spouse said, I'm going to go out and get Jacques. I said, no, don't bother him. He's got other things to do. She said, no. And he came right away. And that sort of woke me up a little bit, as when we're talking about this. And we need more of that now in our little And
Yeah.
just to close on this, I want to give my sister a shout out. My sister Louise, who lives in Brockville, and she writes a piece for Substack, and she's a registered nurse. She's an activist. She's active in her community. She was instrumental in getting the town of Brockville and declaring a food emergency there last summer. And she's helping out with the local food banks, and she writes a piece for Substack. So that's her company there. She's a professional writer and nutritionist and all these other good things. So if you see her on Substack, that's my sister, and she's a model for me.
If you want to donate, because you can help anywhere. That's
absolutely. It doesn't matter where you are. Yeah.
What's the website? If we want to send her something.
I don't know what it is. LMH Food Security Communications is her company, and that's what she writes about. She writes about food security. So I think
we could probably find that on the web.
Yep, that'll be on. It'll be Googleable. Yes.
Well, to end this on a positive note, and thank you, your sister. But there are a lot of wonderful organizations that you can become part of, and I'll tell you.
Absolutely, food bank up here where we are, North Shore. There are all kinds of them. There is La Guignolée that's coming up during the holidays that Radio Canada and others do, and they do a very good job of collecting. You can give money, you can give food. Where was I the other day? Metro. Just to mention, one of the grocery chains, they do with a $25 donation, they put stuff in bags, and you can buy $25 bags of food that they donate to local food banks. So.
And one last local hero, a good man, Dr. Shivendra Dwivedi, who is at Santa Cabrini. He's been running medical clinics overseas in Uttar Pradesh for many years, so that people can have life-saving surgery, prosthetics, surgery to help them with eyesight and that. But he has now extended his mission to here in Montreal, and now the Freedom from Poverty Foundation, or FFPF.org, is going to be donating $500 a month to the old brewery missions. So kudos to them for not only helping overseas, but helping here.
Okay, every little bit helps, I guess. So... Why aren't we a couple of
you know what?
Joyful
but it's
folks today.
Life can't be all ships and giggles, right?
No, I suppose not.
And we will be back to our usual cheerful selves next week. But I think it's just every once in a while, I'm looking at what's going on in the States, and that's what happens when people lose sight of what's important. And instead of yelling at your neighbors, help your neighbors. I grew up post-war, like you did. Much after the war. I was born 12 years after the war. But there was still very much that aesthetic. There was so many groups of people in my neighborhood alone. My gosh, you had organizations which still exist, like the Kiwanis and the Shriners. I remember every year the Kiwanis would show up at the door and we'd buy a fruitcake that would be there for another 2 years. But still, taking part in something that is bigger than yourself actually feels really, really good, because instead of just feeling sad because there's a lot wrong, you can feel better because you're actually doing something. And that, speaking of which, Shield of Athena, Lilac Gala, the 29th of November. I'll tell you more about that later on. That is to support women and children victims of family violence and partnership violence. So that's my next Don Quixote tilting at windmills project.
Okay, so be good to yourself by being good to others. That's the bottom line.
That's our takeaway this week.
Okay. Thank you. Nice to see you. No, I just...
Yes. Yes. Anyway, great to see you, and we'll be back again at it next week.
We will live to chat anon.